Before I disappear forever, I need to tell you what really happened. Why NASA abandoned the ocean. Why the mission was terminated. What we found beneath the surface was not only dangerous, it was unnatural. If you watch this, subscribe and listen closely, because once you hear it, you'll understand what happened. My name is Dr. Eli Mercer, former liaison for the joint NASA-NOAA Deep Sea Initiative, active between 1997 and 2003. I held top secret clearance until my departure, forced, not voluntary. Following what the official record calls a psychological breakdown during deployment, but I wasn't delusional. I saw it. We all did. I'm telling this now because I have stage 4 lymphoma. My clock's ticking. I've hidden too long, lived too scared, but truth has weight. And the truth about NASA and the ocean needs to be told before they erase the last of us. NASA's oceanic operations aren't as well known as its space missions, but in the late 90s, it was deeply involved in undersea mapping and anomaly detection, mainly through satellite sonar relays and submersible drone technology. The project was called Operation Lapis Exo, and while it was publicly billed as climate change research, our real mandate was to investigate a sonar anomaly first picked up in May 1997 off the coast of the South Pacific. 50S 100W. That sound later became known to the public as the bloop, but what I heard in the original, uncompressed audio was not geological. It was a pattern, rhythmic, purposeful. That sound didn't come from a crack in the seafloor or shifting tectonics. It responded when we pinged it. The pattern would change slightly, echoing back in mirrored sequences. I ran a frequency translation through our experimental linguistics AI, the same one originally developed for the Voyager Golden Record. What came back was ... a syntax, not human, but mathematical. Like a message written in physics itself, NASA buried us. But I saved the output file on a secured micro drive labeled EX0417APL. The first expedition was greenlit in August 1998. We were told we'd be deploying an autonomous drone, codenamed Nereus-2, to descend 10,000 meters. I was stationed aboard the research vessel Orpheus Station, a repurposed Navy acoustic surveillance ship. We launched from an isolated port in Valparaiso, Chile. Only 10 of us knew the full scope of the mission. 2 were from NASA, 3 from NOAA, 1 from the US Navy, and the rest, like me, were civilian scientists on government contract. No one smiled during that first briefing. At 3:17 a.m. September 2nd, Nereus-2 detected a narrow crevasse not present on any previous seafloor mapping data. A fracture that extended over 12 kilometers, blacker than the surrounding abyss, absorbing sonar pulses like a sponge. We deployed the drone deeper, past 12,000 meters, well beyond the Mariana Trench. The last image we received was blurred, bathed in bioluminescent blue, with a silhouette in the foreground, impossibly tall, moving against the current and watching the probe. Then the feed went dead. We assumed a technical failure, but 12 minutes later, the ship's backup hydrophones, tuned to ultra-low frequency, picked up something moving. Not drifting, swimming, whatever it was massive, over 300 meters long. We tracked it for 8 minutes before it vanished. That night, the crew was silent. I remember Dr. Inoue, the lead oceanographer, mumbling in her sleep, "It saw us, it knows now." Back at HQ, the footage was confiscated. We were interrogated by CIA-affiliated personnel. They didn't identify themselves by name. They asked us if we believed in primordial intelligence, not AI, not aliens, something older. One agent, codename Red Widow, kept repeating the phrase, "He who looks into the trench invites it to look back." 2 of my colleagues were reassigned. 1, Dr. Ellison, died by suicide a month later. I never believed the official story. In 1999, Operation Lapis Exo was terminated without explanation. Official documents listed budget realignment as the cause, but I later saw a redacted memo, NSC to 08B, which read, "Containment preferable to contact. Decommission all aquatic vector explorations indefinitely. NASA was instructed to redirect its focus exclusively to space." But here's what they won't tell you. We stopped going to the ocean because we found nothing, but because we found too much. Over the next decade, I tried to forget. I took consulting work, taught at a community college in Oregon. But then, in 2011, I received an anonymous package, no return address. Inside was a compact disc labeled Hydrex Prime, encrypted audio files, spectrograms, and a note, "It's awake again." The signature read simply, "From below E," the last initial of Dr. Inoue. I loaded the files onto a private, offline laptop. The sounds were deeper than anything I'd ever heard. Not just sound, pressure. Listening to it made me physically nauseous. The waveform data suggested frequencies well below 7 Hz, bordering on infrasound, known to cause anxiety, hallucinations, even organ disruption in lab animals. These were not random. One file was labeled Frenedy_13. It played for exactly 13 minutes and 13 seconds. I still wake up at 3:13 a.m. drenched in sweat. I tried contacting Dr. Inoue, but she had disappeared. Her university record showed she took a sabbatical to the Philippines. The trail went cold. I visited her last known address in Seattle. Her apartment was abandoned, but inside the closet, I found a black folder with a NASA insignia scratched out and replaced with a strange triangular glyph, like an eye inside a spiral. Inside were heat maps of oceanic thermal vents, but each was marked with the same handwritten symbol. I X the 7th gate. I cross-referenced those coordinates with seismic activity logs. Each location had spikes in underwater tremors, followed by mass beachings of whales, increased reports of sonar disruptions, and, in one case, the disappearance of a private submersible near Tonga in 2004. One site, labeled Pillar X, matched the location of an unlisted deep-sea drilling platform destroyed in 2005. Official records claimed it never existed. But satellite images before the date showed a square shadow in the water, and afterward, nothing. I began reaching out to former colleagues. Most refused to talk. One, Daniel Cross, who worked for the DOD on underwater acoustics, agreed to meet me at a diner in Nevada. He showed up late, gaunt, eyes darting like a hunted man. Before he spoke, he took out a small Faraday pouch and stuffed both our phones inside. He leaned close and whispered, "They're not from space. They're from here. The ocean isn't empty. It's occupied." He handed me a flash drive and walked out. 2 days later, his car exploded in a parking garage in Reno. No suspects. The flash drive contained more audio logs, drone telemetry, and a corrupted PDF titled Dreadnautilus.pdf. The file barely opened, but I caught one phrase, subcrustal biome-non-carbon-base lifeform. Classified, D3V. Leviathan Protocol. There was also a video still, a sonar image of something with symmetry to symmetrical, radial arms, like a massive starfish, but mechanical, hollow, dormant, until it opened. I cross-checked the protocol name with FOIA documents. Nothing under D3V, but I did find a heavily redacted memo from the Defense Intelligence Agency dated March 2000. Engagement with Class Omega aquatic entities poses existential threat to surface biomes. Escalation scenarios unacceptable. Initiate cloaking projects. Tethys Vale and Prometheus Shallow. I realized something horrifying. We weren't exploring the ocean. We were trying to hide from it. I didn't sleep for 3 days after reading that. I kept staring at the phrase, Class Omega aquatic entities. Omega class. Final classification. Existential threat. I printed every page, every photo, and stored them in a waterproof case beneath my floorboards. My wife thought I was spiraling again. I couldn't blame her. The cancer diagnosis had just hit, but this wasn't the tumor talking. I know what paranoia feels like. This wasn't that. This was confirmation that we had woken something up. And now our entire species was pretending we hadn't. In 2013, I made one last attempt to verify my findings. I contacted an old Navy friend who owed me a favor. He'd worked briefly on classified sonar mapping off the coast of Guam. He sent me a single, encrypted image file with a warning: don't send this to anyone. Don't even open it online. We call it the Eye of God down here. The image looked like a coral ring, until you zoomed in and realized the ring was composed of thousands of identical geometric structures, pulsing slightly in sonar capture, almost like pupils watching. A week later, I was followed home. Unmarked black sedan, same one for 3 days. I confronted the driver. He didn't flinch, just lowered his window slightly and said, "You signed an NDA, Dr. Mercer. You remember what's buried stays buried. Or someone else gets buried instead." I took the hint. I packed everything into 3 caches. One mailed to a trusted contact in Nova Scotia, one in a bank vault under a pseudonym in Iceland, and one still with me, hidden in a Faraday cage inside my oxygen machine. In 2015, a Russian vessel, the Akademik Gorbunov, went silent for 36 hours during a deep-sea salvage mission in the Southern Ocean. They resurfaced 1,200 kilometers off course. The entire crew refused debriefing. Some were committed to psychiatric facilities. One engineer published a fragmented blog post before it was scrubbed. "We heard it breathing, like a cathedral exhaling in the dark." I saved a screenshot. The metadata on the post had a strange suffix, 9-Omega-7, the same phrase from Inno's heat maps. I've come to believe that whatever is down there isn't just alive. It's intelligent. It doesn't think in years. It thinks in epochs. It's not carbon-based, not in any way we understand. We were ants tapping on the edge of its hive, and it let us go once. But not because we weren't a threat, because we were beneath notice. And now, we might not be anymore. One document I obtained from an anonymous whistleblower inside NOAA was a field report marked Priority, Crimson Echo. It described a deep-sea probe lost off the Puerto Rico Trench in 2002. The probe had resurfaced 10 months later, entirely reassembled. Its original identification number had been replaced with a symbol etched in microscopic lattice, Omega. It shouldn't be possible. Titanium doesn't self-weld. Unless something down there understood metallurgy better than we ever will. Around this time, I started seeing the same triangular symbol appear in places it shouldn't. Spray painted on driftwood that washed up in Oregon. Carved into the shell of a beached squid in Madagascar. Scanned into the magnetic fields of disrupted GPS systems in the Indian Ocean. Patterns recurring in chaos. The same glyph repeated. The spiral eye. It wasn't warning us. It was marking territory. I visited a retired cryptologist in 2017, someone who worked briefly under Project Artichoke, a precursor to MKUltra. He analyzed some of the acoustic files I'd gathered. His conclusion: it's not communication. It's encryption. The ocean's a vault. Whatever's down there is the lock. He called the sound structure recursive logic, meaning it was encoded to change based on who was listening. Sentient encryption. He died 3 weeks later of a stroke, but his final text to me was chilling. It wants to be understood, but not by us. Why would NASA abandon the ocean when 95% of it remains unexplored? Because they were told to. Because they knew continuing meant either confrontation or communion. And neither outcome was survivable. So they turned their eyes skyward, Mars, Europa, the stars. They told the public it was for humanity's future. But the truth was simpler. The stars are safer than what sleeps in our own backyard. They redirected funding, dismantled suboceanic programs, declassified harmless footage while deleting petabytes of actual data. I found references to internal NASA memos tagged Apollo's blind spot, instructions to never publish imagery below a certain thermal density threshold. One scientist who refused to redact a sonar layer was found drowned in his own backyard pool, 3 states inland from any coastline. Even now, seismic anomalies are increasing. Low-frequency hums reported from hydrophones off Australia, bleached coral in geometric spirals, dead whales with no visible injuries, but eyes completely missing. They say it's pollution, climate change. Maybe it is. But maybe it's something older than climate, older than species, stretching, testing, preparing. I don't know what the end looks like, but I know what the beginning sounded like. I still have that first audio file. I've uploaded it to multiple Deadman switches across encrypted servers. If anything happens to me, the file, along with all my notes, goes public. I don't know if it'll stop what's coming, but maybe it'll make someone listen this time. If you're reading this, save this document. Burn it into your mind, share it, not online, but in person. Trust your instincts. If the ocean feels off, if it hums like a living thing, it's because it is. We're not alone. We were never alone. We were just tolerated. My time's almost up. The doctors say weeks, maybe less. I've made peace with death, but I haven't made peace with silence. That's what they count on. Your silence, your comfort, your willingness to dismiss what doesn't fit. That's how it grows. That's how it waits. I told the truth. It's up to you now to decide if you believe it. Sometimes, when I close my eyes at night, I hear it again. That impossible sound. Not a roar, not a voice, a breath, a slow, conscious inhale, as if the ocean itself were waking up. And in the dark space between that breath and the next, I swear, I hear my name, whispered from below. Subscribe if you want more truth. But remember, not all truths are safe.